prospects. Analysts on ESPN and CBS Sports were already projecting his trajectory. His Instagram numbers were growing faster than his already impressive statistics. The narrative around Mikey Williams was
this kind of foreshadowing when niggas talk about it, because it's like, yeah, that nigga was going fast, you know what I'm saying, at a very fast rate, but then it's like, look how quickly he fell off too, you know what I'm saying. That's really insane how, like, you feel me? That shit
a question of whether he would
Mikey Williams just turned 22. How he now lives is sad. By Hooper's Trends, man. Bro, y'all know back in the day, bro, this nigga was everywhere, bro. So, like, to see this nigga, like, not be that person he was no more, to be different, you know what I'm saying? To, you know, he almost went to jail, right? For all the shit that he, like, you know, he had got into tripping. Like, it's kind of seemed like he kind of fucked up his chance. You know what I'm saying? He blew his chance. He blew his potential. But, man, we about to check it out. We haven't heard about this nigga in a while, man. Let's get into it.
Done. I don't think we're gonna be.
He lives now is sad. There is no other word for it. Not long ago,
I haven't heard about this nigga in about 2 years, bro. I ain't gonna lie, what's going on with him?
Entire country. Every major
2, 3, nah, maybe longer than that.
NBA superstars were posting about.
When the last time y'all heard about it? I say about longer than I'm tripping. I say probably about what, 3-4 years, I think.
Corporations were writing him checks
sure.
before he ever played a college game. The world had already decided he was going to be a star, but somewhere between that moment and right now, everything changed.
I remember all niggas just saying just him and Bronny. That's all niggas talking about, him and Bronny, him and Bronny.
His path, his career stalled in ways nobody saw coming, and the future that once looked inevitable suddenly became uncertain. The story behind how it all fell apart is more complicated than most people know. Stay with us until the end, because this one is worth understanding fully. To understand what Mikey Williams is right now, you have to go back to where this all started. Before he turned 18, before he played a single college basketball game, before any of the legal headlines, Mikey Williams had already become one of the most recognized young basketball players in the entire country. That is not an exaggeration. That is just the reality of what this kid was. Growing up in San Diego, California, Williams possessed
he is from San Diego, right?
Athleticism, explosive leaping ability, and an instinctive scoring touch that made
scouts put down in the comment section below why y'all think he, you know what I'm saying, why he couldn't stay on we probably about to find out from this video why you think he couldn't stay on the straight path. See if you're right, you know, later in the video.
Everything they were doing and pay attention. He was putting up numbers in high school that seemed almost unreal. As a freshman at San Ysidro High School, Williams averaged nearly 30 points a game and at one point dropped 77 points in a single contest, breaking the school's single game scoring record before he had even started shaving regularly.
He was just cooking for real, man.
77 points in high school. Let that sink in for a moment. But what truly separated Mikey Williams from every other talented teenager in America was not just what he could do on the court, it was what he was building off of it. At a time when social media was beginning to transform how young athletes were discovered and marketed, Williams arrived at exactly the right moment with exactly the right skill set.
Shit, I think this is probably the best time to be a college player for real. That NIL money, that shit hitting, bro. Like, niggas getting millions, bro. And you ain't even got to be like just the top of the top, you know what I'm saying? Like, I think that really did open doors to a lot of shit, bro, for real.
The right personality for the digital age. His dunks went viral. His mixtapes circulated across YouTube, Instagram, and Twitter with the kind of organic momentum that marketing agencies spend millions trying to manufacture artificially. LeBron James himself praised the kid. NBA stars were posting about him, sharing his clips, and essentially validating to the entire basketball world that this teenager from San Diego was the real deal. Before he even played his junior year of high school, Mikey Williams had amassed millions of followers across his social media platforms. More than 3 million.
Bro, could you even think about, like, I bet niggas in like the 80s, 90s, 2000s, they was like, bro, I know they want to be like, that was hoopers and shit, just athletes in general. I know they want to be around this time for sure. I feel like it's definitely going in another crazier direction, but niggas got millions of followers before they even touched the NFL. They got niggas got millions of dollars before they even touched the NBA. It's crazy.
On Instagram alone, he was not just a basketball prospect. He was a cultural phenomenon. He was a brand. He was a story that America had already decided it wanted to follow all the way to the NBA. And that kind of attention brought the kind of financial opportunity that most professional athletes do not see until after they have already been drafted.
See what I'm saying? Like, niggas not touching that, bro.
He made history in a way that nobody had ever done before in American sports.
This nigga making
it
in high school.
The first American high school basketball player to sign a major footwear endorsement deal, inking an agreement with Puma that made national news and sent shockwaves through the sports business world. Think about what that moment represented. A teenager still in high school, not yet committed to a college program, had convinced one of the largest athletic brands on the planet that he was worth investing in before he had played a single minute of college or professional basketball. That does not happen unless the people writing the checks believe with total confidence that this player is going to become one of the faces of the sport for the next decade.
You gotta be undeniable.
Puma was not making a gamble. They were making what appeared at the time to be an obvious business decision. Mikey Williams was going to be a star, and they wanted to be attached to that star from the very beginning. The expectations that followed were extraordinary. As Williams entered his final years of high school and began navigating the recruiting process, he was not being recruited as just another talented prospect. He was being discussed as a future lottery pick, a potential franchise cornerstone, a player whose combination of talent, marketability, and cultural footprint could make him one of the most valuable young athletes in all of professional sports. Blue blood college programs came calling with the kind of aggressive recruitment reserved for once-in-a-generation prospects. Analysts on ESPN and CBS Sports were already projecting his trajectory. His Instagram numbers were growing faster than his already impressive statistics. The narrative around Mikey Williams was
like this kind of foreshadowing when niggas talk about it, because it's like, yeah, that nigga was growing fast, you know what I'm saying, at a very fast rate, but then it's like, look how quickly he fell off too, you know what I'm saying? That's really insane how, like, you feel me? That shit.
The question of whether he would reach the NBA. The narrative was about how quickly it would happen and how dominant he would become once he got there. Nobody was writing cautionary tale articles. Nobody was raising red flags. The entire basketball world was simply waiting for the next chapter of what everyone assumed would be an inevitable.
You know what I'm saying? Like we always say, we always edit it out because we always do. You already know.
Success story. On November 5th, 2022, Williams made it official. He committed to play college basketball at the University of Memphis under head coach Penny Hardaway, himself a former NBA star.
Penny Hardaway,
one of
facts.
the most
BJ.
respected names in the sport. The commitment was another headline, another moment that validated the trajectory everyone had mapped out for this kid. Memphis had a history of producing NBA talent, and pairing Penny Hardaway's coaching pedigree with Mikey Williams' unique combination of skill and stardom seemed like a perfect match. The basketball world applauded the decision. People circled the date of his college debut on the calendar. Everything was moving exactly the way everyone expected. And then on April 13th, 2023, everything stopped. Word broke that Mikey Williams had been arrested in San Diego County following a shooting incident at his home. The details that emerged were serious and immediately alarming. According to prosecutors, a car arrived at Williams' home carrying several individuals, and shots were fired at the vehicle. The arrests generated national headlines within hours. Every sports outlet in the country, every basketball analyst, every fan who had followed his rise with excitement was suddenly talking about something that had absolutely nothing to do with basketball. The story that had been building toward a triumphant college debut and an inevitable NBA future had taken a turn that nobody had anticipated and nobody quite knew how to process. One moment, Mikey Williams was one of the most celebrated teenage athletes in America. The next, he was facing criminal charges that carried the potential for a decades-long prison sentence. The legal case that unfolded was as serious as anything a young athlete in this country.
It's crazy because, mind you, this is all happening before he even get to the real destination, which is the NBA. Like, damn, bro, we can't even get to the NBA before the bullshit starts. Come on, bro.
Prosecutors filed 9 felony charges against Williams, including multiple counts of assault with a deadly weapon to firing into an occupied vehicle. 9 felonies. For context, a single felony conviction in the state of California can permanently alter a person's life, eliminating employment opportunities, professional licenses, and in the world of professional sports, raising the kind of red flags that organizations simply cannot ignore. 9 of them stacked.
I know as soon as that shit happened, he started losing brand deals left and fucking right, bro. That's tough. So much money just leaving all at one time. I know he was
20-year-old
like,
kid
fuck.
who had been just weeks earlier preparing for his college basketball debut created a level of uncertainty that was almost impossible to overstate. The Puma deal, the college commitment, the NBA projections, the millions of followers, none of it mattered anymore because all of it was suddenly secondary to the question of whether Mikey Williams would be spending the foreseeable future in a courtroom or in a prison cell. The University of Memphis responded the way any institution would when faced with that level of legal uncertainty. Williams enrolled at Memphis in the fall of 2023 and took online classes, but the basketball program did not allow him to practice or participate with the team while the criminal case remained unresolved. Months passed, his teammates were getting better, building chemistry, developing under Penny Hardaway's system, while Williams was
It's like by the time he come back, man, he already kind of, you know what I'm saying? Damn.
from the outside. The development that
Facts.
should have been happening was not happening. The college experience he had planned for, the basketball growth he needed, the exposure in front of NBA scouts that every young prospect depends on, all of it was on hold. For a player whose career depends on maintaining and building on momentum, standing still during what should have been a defining developmental period was a quietly devastating blow that did not get nearly enough attention in the coverage of his legal situation. The legal process finally reached a conclusion in November 2023 when Williams entered a plea agreement. He pleaded guilty to a single felony count of making a criminal threat, which represented a dramatic reduction.
Man, I know the
from
lawyers got
original-
together. They said, Mikey, I ain't gonna lie. You got to take this deal, bro. You're cooked, my nigga. They ain't fight that bitch. They ain't, you know what I'm saying, nothing about that shit. That nigga was cooked.
9 felony
Get
charges
go.
that prosecutors had filed. By accepting the plea deal, he avoided the possibility of the kind of extended prison sentence that would have ended not just his basketball
best
career,
option.
but fundamentally altered the entire course of his life. The court sentenced him to a year of summary probation. Eventually, as he complied with the terms of that agreement, the felony charge was reduced to a misdemeanor, no jail time. A path forward
good,
that,
though.
at least legally speaking, gave him the chance to return to basketball. But here's the part of this story that the headline writers moved past too quickly. The legal outcome, as favorable as it ultimately was compared to what he could have faced, did not erase the damage that had already been done. Public perception had shifted permanently. The conversation around Mikey Williams was no longer about lottery picks and endorsement empires. It was about second chances and character
Nigga's a walking controversy. You already know.
concerns and whether the kid who once seemed destined for superstardom could even hold a roster spot.
But shit,
in
we done
college.
seen niggas come back from way crazier shit than this, bro. So I don't want to hear no excuses, though. You know what I'm saying? Look at Mike Vick, bro. I don't hear that shit. This nigga actually went to jail. I get it. NFL player already did his thing, so he has more of an opportunity and more, I guess, breathing room to do that shit. But still, I'm just saying, like, take the mindset into account. Because Michael Vick could easily say, I ain't going back to that shit. You know what I'm saying?
The momentum that takes
He has something to prove, so.
years to build, the kind of momentum that Williams had accumulated through thousands of hours of work and millions of hours of media attention, had evaporated in the span of a few months. And in the high-speed world of modern basketball recruiting and scouting, that kind of lost time and lost momentum is extraordinarily difficult to recover. Puma ended its endorsement partnership with Williams following the controversy. The deal that had made history, the agreement that had positioned him as one of the most marketable young athletes in the country before he ever played a college game, was gone. Other sponsorship opportunities that might have materialized in a world where his trajectory remained uninterrupted simply never arrived. The business infrastructure that had been quietly assembling around the idea of Mikey Williams as a future superstar quietly disbanded. Companies that were once eager to attach themselves to his rising star were now calculating the reputational risk of being associated with a player whose name was primarily appearing in legal news coverage rather than basketball highlights. The financial consequences of that shift were enormous. We are talking about millions of dollars in projected earnings, opportunities that, once lost at that stage of a young athlete's career, almost never return in the same form. After the legal case resolved, Williams made the decision to leave Memphis entirely. The program had made clear through his actions and through the long delay in clarifying his status that his return to the basketball team was not a priority for the university. His attorney said as much publicly. Williams entered the transfer portal and committed to the University of Central Florida, adding a prayer emoji to his announcement and writing 4 simple words that captured everything. All I needed was a chance. It was a phrase that hit differently when you understood what the previous year had looked like for him.
Yeah.
Here was a player who had once been pursued by every major program in the country, who had been
Hey, but what they
celebrated
always say, America love an underdog. I mean, would you call him an underdog? I guess we love a comeback story. Let me say that.
by NBA
You know what I'm
superstars who had signed a historic endorsement deal as a teenager, now simply asking for someone to let him play college basketball. UCF gave him that chance. But the 2024 to 2025 season at UCF was not the triumphant comeback that his supporters had hoped for. In 18 games with the Knights, Williams averaged just 5.1 points per game and 14 minutes of floor time per contest. Those numbers were not the production of a projected lottery pick. They were not the numbers that prompt NBA scouts to rearrange their schedules. For a player who had once averaged nearly 30 points a night in high school and had been ranked as the top prospect in the country during parts of his high school career, averaging 5 points in limited minutes at the college level was a sobering reminder of how much the interruption had cost him. The development gap, the lost seasons of competitive basketball, the disruption to his confidence, his rhythm, and his professional trajectory, all of it showed up in those statistics in ways that were painful to watch for anyone who remembered what this kid was supposed to become. The transfer
Too much
portal
time off. Is he dedicated? You know what I'm saying? Do we know? You know?
became his destination once more. In April 2025, Williams committed to Sacramento State University, a program undergoing a dramatic transformation of its own under the newly appointed head coach Mike Bibby, the former Sacramento Kings star and NBA point guard, and with NBA legend Shaquille O'Neal serving as the program's general manager. It was a fascinating combination of circumstances. Sacramento State was rebuilding
But he
itself
getting,
around
hey, I ain't gonna lie, that's a second chance. Come on, you
big
gotta lock
names
in
and
with this
major
shit, bro.
personalities, and Mikey
You know what I'm
Williams
saying? That's
fit
what I
that
be thinking
narrative.
if it was at that time.
ESPN Shams Charania reported
Obviously,
the
we
move.
know what
It was
happens.
news again, and for a moment it felt like the kind of fresh start that might actually work. And to be fair, Sacramento State gave Williams something UCF never quite did: a starting role and the opportunity to be
You can have too much of a
Bro.
good thing, so my Philly cheesesteak combo won't be around
Fuck
for
on,
long.
bro.
In this video, I'm going to be
they
making
hit him with the
3
double
games
shits in
in
this
just
motherfucker.
1 hour, but all the
the centerpiece of an offense. His 2025 to 2026 numbers reflected that change in role dramatically. At Sacramento State, Williams was putting up over 17 points and 4.5 assists per game, showing flashes of the talent that had once made the entire basketball world stop and take notice. There were individual performances, including a 34-point game against Idaho State, where the old Mikey Williams reappeared briefly and reminded everyone watching that the skill had never completely disappeared. The question was never whether he could score basketball. The question was always bigger and more complicated than that, because NBA scouts, as the reporting made clear, remained unconvinced. Draft analysts were direct in their assessments. Despite the improved statistics at the college level, the level of competition at Sacramento State is not the level that NBA decision makers use to evaluate prospects in the modern draft era. Averaging 17 points against Big Sky Conference competition is a very different thing than averaging 17 points against the ACC or the Big Ten or the SEC.
Bro, I never
Players
thought, man, I know
Williams
playing in college is fucking lit, bro. I ain't gonna lie. That's probably one of the craziest experiences. I look, you know, do that shit like that's to play in college. You know what I'm saying? That's one of the craziest experiences you can have, but that shit lit.
was dominating at Sacramento State were not the players he would be expected to compete against in the NBA. And when scouts looked at the bigger picture, they saw a player who had spent years bouncing between programs, who had demonstrated inconsistency at a higher level of competition, who carried the legal history that organizations with millions of dollars invested in roster decisions take very seriously, and who was now putting up numbers in a conference that did not typically produce NBA rotation players. The projection that multiple analysts shared was not encouraging. The consensus among those who scout the draft professionally was that Williams was currently trending toward being undrafted, a conclusion that, when placed alongside the trajectory everyone once mapped out for him, is almost too stark to sit with comfortably. And then came another setback. During the 2025 to 2026 season at Sacramento State, Williams missed 10 games due to injury, including the final 8 games of the season. In a situation
Damn, 10 games, what the fuck happened to him?
where every game matters enormously for his professional case, where every performance is another data point that scouts are watching, losing the back end of his season to injury added another obstacle to a journey that had already
That's the one thing other
accumulated.
athletes gotta fucking, you know, endures injuries, bro. That shit could be irritating as fuck, bro. Like, I fucked up my back and shit. I haven't been in the gym about a week, bro. So I can imagine just being fucked up for like a month, 2 months. You know what I'm saying? It's like you just feel antsy and shit. You just want to get out and move. So
More
damn.
obstacles.
And then it's even worse for him. It's the pressure because he needs to play in order to want to go to the NBA. So I can see how that can, like, behind the scenes, he might be fucked up. Who knows?
Anyone could have predicted. The path that once ran straight and smooth toward the NBA had become something else entirely. Something winding, uncertain, and marked by detours that nobody who watched him play in high school could have imagined. So why does all of this feel sad? That is a word that gets used a lot when people talk about Mikey Williams now. And it is worth understanding exactly what that word means in this context. The sadness is not simply about the legal situation, as serious as that was. The sadness is not simply about the statistics or the transfer
potential.
portal or the endorsement deals that disappeared.
Gotta
The
be.
sadness comes from something deeper and more human. It comes from watching enormous potential, the kind of potential that appears genuinely once in a generation, get redirected by a
Fizzle
series
out
of
like a
decisions made
motherfucker.
when a person was still a teenager. It comes from understanding that the gap between who Mikey Williams appeared to be at 17 and who he has become at 22 is
But that
not
go
the
to show
result
you
of a
that it's important that who you have around you. You know, where was the people that need to be guiding him to get to where he needed to go? You know what I'm
lack
saying?
of talent.
Where was them
Scouts who
people
have
at?
watched him closely will tell you that the athleticism
Keep
is
him
still
straight.
there. The burst, the court vision, the ability to get to the rim, none of that vanished. What happened was something that no basketball drill can teach and no coaching staff can install. What happened was the irreversible loss of time, momentum, development, and a singular window in a young player's career when everything is either accelerating toward a destination or quietly beginning to drift. There's also a broader lesson embedded in the Mikey Williams story that the basketball world has been reluctant to discuss openly. The ecosystem that elevated him to cultural superstardom before he finished high school, the social media machine, the viral highlights,
Chew him
the
up, spit him,
million-dollar
chew
endorsement
them up, and
deals
spit him out.
before a
You know what I'm
college
saying?
debut, the national media attention, none of that infrastructure was designed with a teenager's long-term well-being in mind. It was
Yeah.
designed to extract value from a remarkably talented young person at the exact moment when that talent was most marketable. What it did not account for was the pressure that level of attention places on someone still growing up, still making the kinds of mistakes that every young person makes.
That's why he
still
needs people
figuring
around
out
him,
who
though.
they are and
Older
how to
people.
navigate a world that had
putting
decided
them on
before they
game.
were old enough to fully understand the stakes that they were going to be a superstar. That does not excuse the decisions that were made. The events of April 2023 had real consequences, and the people involved in that situation face real harm. Accountability matters, but understanding why someone in that position might make poor decisions, understanding the environment that surrounded him and the pressure that had been building since middle school, understanding that the same ecosystem that celebrated his dunks and packaged his image for corporate partnerships did not necessarily prepare him for the weight of all of that attention, is part of telling this story honestly. Mikey Williams was never just a basketball player to the industry that built itself around him. He was a product. And when that product became complicated, the industry moved on quickly and efficiently. The human being left behind
That's
was 20
tough.
years old and facing 9 felony charges. That asymmetry deserves
Nigga
acknowledgement.
said
He
9,
was 20 years old
goddamn.
and facing 9 felony charges. That asymmetry does
How many?
being left
Oh, he
behind
just said
was 20
felony.
years old and facing 9 felony charges. That asymmetry deserves acknowledgement. What remains for him now is a question that only time will answer. He has eligibility remaining. He has a Sacramento State program behind him, with Mike Bibby coaching him directly. A man who spent a career as an elite point guard in the NBA and understands better than most what it takes to make that leap. He has shown in individual moments that the talent is real and that the ceiling has not completely disappeared. If he can stay healthy, stay focused, continue developing his decision making and his efficiency, and find a way to produce consistently at a level that makes NBA organizations look past the history and see the player, there is still a version of this story that has more chapters to
That
write.
nigga, oh,
But the honest
that nigga shit
assessment,
is
the one that
fucking
is
pure. Look
supported
at
by
this
the
shit.
evidence and the reporting and the draft projections and the statistics, is that the road to the NBA from where Mikey Williams stands right now is genuinely difficult. It is not impossible. Players have come back from harder situations. Basketball has a way of rewarding persistence and punishing premature conclusions, but the comfortable, inevitable path that everyone assumed he was walking is long gone. What exists now is something harder, longer, and far less certain. So here's where we stand. Mikey Williams grew up in San Diego and became one of the most celebrated high school basketball players in American history before he was old enough to vote. He made history as the first American high school player to sign a major sneaker endorsement deal, partnering with Puma in an agreement that signaled to the
Hey, bro,
entire sports
how old was
business
LeBron? I think he had one with Nike or some shit. Like, am I tripping? Or is that something
that
else?
this teenager was going to be a superstar. He committed to
I
Memphis
thought LeBron
and
had that
became
shit
a
like
Hardaway,
18 too, though.
carrying the expectations of an entire sport on his shoulders. Then came April 13, 2023, the arrest, the 9 felony charges, the national headlines that shifted everything.
Let me know in the comment
He
section and shit if
navigated
that's
the
what happened. I thought my,
process,
you know what I'm saying,
avoided
LeBron
prison,
did.
and eventually had his charge reduced to a misdemeanor, but not before losing his endorsement deal, missing years of critical development, and watching the enormous momentum that had been building around him since middle school slowly dissolve. He transferred to UCF and averaged just over 5 points in limited playing time. He transferred again to Sacramento State, where he found a starting role, put up better numbers, and played under Mike Bibby and Shaquille O'Neal in the program trying to build something new. He missed the end of the season with an injury, and he currently sits at 22 years old outside of any serious NBA draft conversation, still searching for the breakthrough that once appeared to be a foregone conclusion. That is the story of Mikey Williams at 22. And what makes it genuinely sad is not any single piece of it in isolation. What makes it sad is the totality of it, the gap between what was and what is. The gap between the teenager who made LeBron James stop scrolling and the young man now grinding for minutes at Sacramento State. The gap between the Puma deal that made history and the transfer portal submissions that barely make
You would think a nigga like this is first, you know what I'm saying, pick.
Not because he is a bad person, not because he lacks talent, but because of decisions made in a difficult moment at a young age, in a life that had been under intense public scrutiny since he was in middle school, and because the basketball world does not wait for anyone to figure themselves out. At 22 years old, Mikey Williams still has time. There are still chapters left to write, still games to be played, still moments where the talent that made the whole world pay attention could emerge and change the conversation. The next stage of his career is not written yet, but the one thing that is certain is that whatever comes next,
he might be able to, I mean, he already got the clout. He could pivot to something else, you know, YouTube, to all that shit, bro. There's other areas he probably could go to and shit. People fuck with him.
To be earned in a way that the original version of his story never required. Because that version, the easy version, the inevitable version, the version where a kid from San Diego walks straight from high school highlights to an NBA roster with a Puma logo on his shoes and millions of fans watching every step, that version ended on a spring night in April 2023, and it is never coming back. What comes next is up to him, and that might be the most important thing anyone has said about Mikey Williams in a very long time. If this story hit differently than you expected, drop your thoughts in the comments below. Where do you think this goes from here? Can Mikey Williams still make it to the NBA? Or
I feel like it depends on his mindset, bro. Like, you can do anything you fucking want, but you gotta want that shit. But if y'all enjoyed that video, man, please subscribe, like, and comment, do all that, man. I appreciate y'all. I'm gonna keep dropping this content for y'all. I appreciate y'all. Thank y'all. I'm out, man. Peace.